Hello everyone, let's look at today's Leetcode problem 7.3 set matrix zeros. Before starting this problem, let us look at a motivational quote. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. So it says quite a few things here. So we have to be uh, putting in efforts to make our dreams a reality, but at the same time, it involves consistency and hard work. And everybody will have a dream, but the person who works hard and pursues through hard work can achieve his dreams. Let us look at the problem statement. Given an m into n integer matrix, if an element is 0, set the row and column to zeros. You must do it in place. So the problem statement is very simple. So if we see a 0 at any specific cell, then we might have to set all the rows, and then we might have to make this 0 and 0, and the values in rows and columns should be made to 0 before returning the output. Same goes in this example. We might have to make this 0, and all of these rows 0. And since we see as it is 0 at the last column, we might have to make all of the elements in the last column also 0. And the output is as 0. Only main thing that is required in this problem is, can we build a solution which works in space complexity of 1, right? So let us look at few these two approaches. They have even listed here. So one is m into n, which might be a brute force approach. And this could be space m plus n. Let us look at all three approaches. So in the brute force approach, let us say we have an input array 1, something like this, and we create a copy of this matrix, copy matrix. In the copied matrix, we check if elements in row I and j, let's say we have two for loops I and j, and it is important to know that n is matrix length, which denotes the number of rows, and n represents the number of columns. This would be matrix of any first matrix, and taking the length of it would give us the number of columns. So let's say we have two for loops which are one for row and one for column, and the way that we do it is we iterate through the rows and columns through the for loops I and j, and if we see a specific element at 0, matrix I and j at 0, and then we create two for loops, one for column, and this could be iterating m times, and this could be iterating n times, and we would need to iterate column 0 to n times, and for all the for all the rows I need to call, we would be setting all of these values to 0, and similarly this will be stored in the copy matrix, and in the next for loop all of this is happening inside this for loop. If statement, if we find a specific element 0, and similarly we make 0 to n rows, and we change the copy matrix values and a specific row and a specific column j, and this will be okay. And here we are creating a copy matrix, and this will be space complexity m into n, and time complexity of such this solution would be m into n plus n plus n, right? Since we have two for loops, this will be m into n, and we have two for loops which runs one after another, so this would be n and this would be n, so this would be n plus n. Okay, so this was a true brute force approach, and if we have to understand the next approach where they say that we can optimize this to have a simple m plus n space complexity. So let's say in case of m plus n space complexity, uh, we know that we would be needing to make the specific row and column. So we can have a row matrix and a row matrix of length uh, m, and column matrix of n. And as we iterate, if we see uh, iterate over input matrix, if we see a specific element m at I comma j is equal to 0, then we need to make row at I as 0 and column at j as maybe 0, so that this indicates that all of the specific rows. So for example, here we let's say column matrix would be something like this, and we would initially set it to all ones, and if we see a specific value, then we change it to 0. Similar goes to the row matrix, and finally we would print the result. We would change input matrix based on rows and columns. Okay, this was an approach to, and here the space and time complexity would be m into n, and space complexity would be slightly optimized. Coming to the last approach, which is uh, the most optimized approach is where we might not have to utilize any additional space, and this can be done if we are slightly more intelligent in the way that we are doing so. Uh, let's say we consider if we are thinking on the second approach, we had two uh, separate matrices to point our values of a specific row or a column to be made as zero. But here, let's say if we are taking the first row and the first column, and we can iterate over maybe second part of this part of the row. Maybe I will. So if we are setting these values as maybe true or false as some sort of a pointer, and also this value, let's say first row, and we can have a separate constants outside, let's say first row, first column, just so that we segregate all of these things, and we can have a separate marker for in the values 1, 2, and so on. And only for the first row and column, we can have a separate variables outside, just to, just to indicate if all of the first row items are 0 and all of the first row columns are 0. Or let's say even if we find a specific first row value at column 0, then we can just mark it as 0 and all of the columns should also become 0. But yeah, just we can have a variable outside, and then we can change it at later point of time once we manipulate it. And here we can iterate over each row from left to right, and then we can set these values here in place to hold values such as 0 or 1, indicating that the specific row can be needs to be changed or unchanged. Right. So that's the whole idea of making this in place zero transformation of this matrix. So let us go to the Leetcode editor and let's try solving this approach. So let's go with matrix length, which indicates the number of rows in the variable n. And so as we discussed, so we are going to check if any of the first row elements are 0, and then we are going to evaluate this. We are going to evaluate these two values for first row and first column by iterating over the input matrix. This indicates that we are iterating in the first for loop. In the we are iterating 0 to m, and we are checking if all of the first column elements are, if any of the first column elements are 0. So let's say if all of the first column elements are 0, then this would still be marked true, or if any one of them are still marked, if 0 in the first one. So that would be a good marker for this. Similarly, let's do the same thing for post, where this would be here. So all of the rows and columns will be checked here. Once we do that, now we can now we are sure that now we are we can move on to the next set of rows. That is either the first index row or first index column. That is excluding the zeroth row or zeroth column. So we can use that as a placeholder to mark the next set of rows, either 0 or leave them untouched based on the values that are seen. So we make the value at the first row and at the zeroth column as 0, indicating that all of the first row should be marked 0. And similarly for the columns, we set it and next we also evaluate if and using these values that we just set in the matrix pointer 0 and 1. So we use them as our reference to mark all the specific rows or columns to 0. So let's 0 of the specific rows and columns. And let's put in more. Either a marker with reference to the row value is 0 or the column value is 0, then we change the specific row or column value to 0. So that would indicate if either the row is having to indicate 0 reference or the column is having to indicate 0 reference, then we change the specific cell to 0. Right. So yeah. So, now we can change the values of the first column with reference to the variables that we had here. try submitting this solution. Let me try reading this solution. So I see a few possible fixes here. So since we are calculating the first row and the first column, so we can start the check from the first row to the first column, and we can mark the values of 0 row in the CSS column as a reference pointers. And this would be J. I believe that might have caused the calculated issue that we see. So let's see what's going on here. So we have our matrix and we're calculating length, also evaluating the first row and the first column. And we are going to check these. Okay. Seems like I missed many of the variable references in the for loop, so that was a major issue. Now let me try running. Doesn't seem like this should give an error, but yeah, seems like this is giving us a wrong answer. investigate. Since we do this from 0 to 1 to 1, we might also want to do this 1 to 2. Okay, let's see. Okay, as you see, the solution gets submitted, but quite a few errors. Only thing that we might want to be careful is with respect to the values that we, variables that we copy from different parts needs to be followed. Yeah. If you found this video helpful, please like it.